In 2016, one of the largest cryptocurrency hacks in history took place. Someone breached the security of Bitfinex, a major crypto exchange, and stole nearly 120,000 Bitcoin. At the time, that haul was worth about $70 million. But as Bitcoin's value skyrocketed over the following years, those stolen coins became worth billions. By the time federal agents finally cracked the case in 2022, the stash had ballooned to over $4.5 billion. Today, it's valued at more than $10 billion. The mastermind behind the hack was a man named Ilya Lichtenstein, a tech entrepreneur who executed the cyber attack with remarkable sophistication. But this story isn't really about him. It's about his wife, a woman who would become one of the most bizarre figures in cryptocurrency crime history. Her name is Heather Morgan, but you might know her by her unforgettable rap persona, Razzlekhan, the self-proclaimed Crocodile of Wall Street. Heather Morgan didn't fit the profile of a typical criminal. She was a successful entrepreneur, running a New York-based company called SalesFolk that specialized in copywriting and email marketing. She wrote columns for Inc. magazine, sharing business advice and positioning herself as an influencer in the startup world. She taught American culture at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. On paper, she was a legitimate businesswoman with a credible educational background and a growing reputation in entrepreneurial circles. But Morgan had another side. Under the alias Razzlekhan, she produced rap videos that were, to put it mildly, unforgettable. Her music videos featured her in outlandish costumes, spitting awkward bars about being a misfit and a rebel. In one particularly memorable video titled Versace Bedouin, which she dedicated to all the weirdos, entrepreneurs, hackers and misfits, Morgan delivered cringe-inducing rhymes while dressed in bizarre outfits. The production quality was amateur at best, and her flow was widely mocked online. But she leaned into the absurdity with complete confidence, promoting herself relentlessly across social media platforms. What nobody knew at the time was that while Morgan was building her personal brand as an entrepreneur and terrible rapper, she was also helping her husband launder billions of dollars in stolen cryptocurrency. The scheme was massive in scope and surprisingly sophisticated. Morgan and Lichtenstein used numerous methods to obscure the origins of the stolen Bitcoin. They set up multiple accounts at virtual currency exchanges and financial institutions, using both their real identities and fake ones. They moved funds through cryptocurrency mixers, including a service called Bitcoin Fog, which scrambles transactions to make them harder to trace. They converted Bitcoin into regular currency through bank accounts in Russia and Ukraine. They even used accounts on darknet markets to further muddy the trail. Here's where the story gets complicated. Morgan wasn't involved in the original hack. She didn't know about it when it happened in 2016. According to prosecutors, she only learned that the source of the funds was the Bitfinex theft sometime in early 2020. But even before she knew the specific crime her husband had committed, she was helping him launder money. Court documents reveal that Morgan participated in efforts to conceal and obscure the source of the funds while knowing they came from some kind of illegal activity. She allowed her own financial accounts to be used. She helped set up the complex web of transactions designed to make the money untraceable. The couple managed to successfully launder about 1/5 of what Lichtenstein had stolen, which is still an enormous sum. The rest remained hidden in various digital wallets, waiting to be cleaned. They were living a double life, presenting themselves as successful tech entrepreneurs while secretly managing one of the largest money laundering operations in history. Everything came crashing down in February 2022. Federal agents from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, the FBI, and Homeland Security investigations had been painstakingly following the blockchain trails. Led by IRS Special Agent Chris Janczewski, investigators used blockchain analysis software to trace the movement of the stolen Bitcoin through thousands of transactions. The technology allowed them to see patterns that would have been impossible to detect just a few years earlier. Eventually, the trail led directly to Heather Morgan and Ilya Lichtenstein. On February 8, 2022, just a month after authorities had executed a search warrant on their New York City apartment, Morgan and Lichtenstein were arrested. The charges were conspiracy to commit money laundering and conspiracy to defraud the United States. The arrest made international headlines, not just because of the massive amount of money involved, but because of who these people were. The revelation that the Crocodile of Wall Street rapper was allegedly involved in laundering billions in cryptocurrency was too bizarre to believe. Netflix immediately sensed a hit story. Within 3 days of the arrest, the streaming service had ordered a documentary about the case, enlisting the executive producer of Tiger King to direct it. Morgan's eccentric online persona made her perfect fodder for a true crime documentary. Her Razzlekhan videos went viral, with people sharing clips and marveling at the absurdity of it all. For over a year, the case slowly moved through the legal system. Morgan and Lichtenstein appeared to be cooperating with authorities, which suggested they were hoping to reduce their sentences. Then, in August 2023, both pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit money laundering. Lichtenstein also admitted to being the hacker who had actually stolen the Bitcoin from Bitfinex, finally answering questions about who was behind the original breach. As part of their cooperation deal, Lichtenstein even testified against Roman Sterlingoff, the administrator of Bitcoin Fog, the mixing service they had used to launder some of the stolen funds. The sentencing phase took over a year. In November 2024, Lichtenstein was sentenced first. Despite facing a maximum of 20 years in prison, he received just 5 years. Prosecutors acknowledged his quick confession after the arrest and his substantial cooperation in helping authorities pursue other cryptocurrency criminals. He had provided valuable information that led to other investigations and arrests. At his sentencing, Lichtenstein asked the court to be lenient with his wife, emphasizing that he had kept her in the dark about the theft initially, and that her role was significantly less than his. A week later, it was Morgan's turn. On November 18th, 2024, she stood in a federal courtroom in Washington, D.C., and apologized for her actions. "I'm extremely sorry and deeply regret the choices I made," she told the judge. "I used my time and energy to do harm instead of good, and I'm ashamed of that." Her defense attorneys argued that she deserved a sentence of time served, meaning she wouldn't face additional prison time beyond what she'd already spent in detention. They painted her as someone who had proven herself worthy of a second chance. Prosecutors acknowledged that her role was indeed less significant than her husband's. She hadn't executed the hack. She wasn't even aware it was specifically the Bitfinex theft until years after it occurred. Still, she had knowingly participated in laundering funds she knew came from illegal activity, and she had used her own accounts to do it. The judge sentenced Morgan to 18 months in prison, about 1/3 of the maximum 5-year term she could have received. It was a far lighter sentence than many expected, but prosecutors believed it was appropriate given her cooperation and her lesser role compared to Lichtenstein. What happened next was vintage Razzlekhan. Just hours after being sentenced to more than a year in federal prison, Morgan jumped on social media, speaking directly to her followers in character. "I'm sorry I have been gone for a little while," she said to the camera. "For the last 3 years, I've been battling a Fed case, and I like to listen to my lawyers. Well, guess what? It's over. I'm very excited I will soon be telling my story, sharing my thoughts, and telling you about the other creative endeavours I've been working on." Her attorney had just finished telling reporters that Morgan would pay the price for the rest of her life, yet there she was, sounding almost gleeful about her future prospects. She even hinted at a return to her rap career, posting on social media, "Who's ready for new Razzlekhan music?" Morgan began her 18-month sentence around the end of January 2025 at the Federal Correctional Institution in Victorville, California, specifically at the women's camp, a minimum security facility. But even from behind bars, she continued to make headlines. In December 2024, Netflix released a documentary about the case titled "Biggest Heist Ever." Morgan was not happy with how she was portrayed. She took to her YouTube channel to push back against what she called misconceptions about her role. In January, her attorneys sent cease and desist letters to Netflix and the documentary creators, claiming her depiction was misleading and defamatory. The case resulted in the largest financial seizure in United States history. Authorities recovered approximately $10 billion worth of cryptocurrency, a testament to the power of blockchain analysis and dogged investigative work. It also highlighted the challenges of prosecuting cryptocurrency crimes and the sometimes lenient sentences that white-collar criminals receive, even when billions of dollars are involved. So who really is Heather Morgan? Is she a criminal mastermind who helped launder billions? Or is she someone who made terrible decisions after discovering her husband's crimes? Is she a shameless self-promoter who will milk this story for all it's worth? Or is she genuinely remorseful and deserving of a second chance? The truth is probably all of the above. Morgan is a complex figure who combined legitimate business success with criminal activity, who built a personal brand on being weird and unconventional, and who now finds herself as the punchline of one of the strangest cryptocurrency crime stories ever told. Whether she'll successfully reinvent herself after prison, following in the footsteps of reformed convicts like Michael Milken and Anna Sorokin, remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, we probably haven't heard the last of Razzlekhan, the Crocodile of Wall Street.